welcome to another episode of BSN Long Story Short. Today we are focusing on the future of NFTs, DDC, and I am your host today, Adam from Token Insight, a blockchain research company. Our guests for today's panel are Ifan, the CEO of Red Day Technology, and Jihan, the co-founder and managing partner at Kinetic, and Stefan, Director and Marketing of Product Strategy at Block Trust. Before we begin, we would like to throw a quick reminder that you can find our information on Twitter at BSN-Base and LinkedIn and our website, of course. From the information down below, we will share it on the links. Now, let's give our speakers a bit of a time to share their backgrounds and how they got to where they are now. Please, would you like to start, Mr. Ifan? Give us a brief introduction.
Hi. My name is Ifan He. I'm the CEO and the founder of Red Day Technology. And Red Day is one of the founding members of the project blockchain-based service network, BSN. So basically, BSN is an infrastructure. So we don't really, focus on any applications and stuff like that. The reason why we want to build an infrastructure for blockchain applications is we really, really believe this technology is far beyond the cryptocurrency. Okay, right now, because everybody still focused on the cryptocurrency, but we think this, the blockchain technology is like building a public IT system, compared to a back-end system. So for any IT system, they can choose where they put data there to process data. And on those public system, what I mean is public system, not public blockchain. Okay, public system like blockchain system, then there will be database technologies, just like Oracle, MySQL, in our backend system. So what's that database technology? We think it's NFT technology. So that's why, we not only focus on the blockchain as an infrastructure, we also focus on NFT technology as a database. Okay, that's basically what we are doing. Thank you.
Amazing. Mr. Jihan.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Jihan. I'm the founder of Kinetic. We are the first blockchain investment firm in Hong Kong. Started in 2016. I've been in this space since 2013 and helped to start a lot of the early communities in Hong Kong around blockchain. We are also investors around the kind of general space and in Red Day as well, and strong supporters. And we've been very deeply involved in the NFT community. I'm a collector of NFTs. I work directly with top artists like Beeple, Rafiq Anadol, Ash Thorpe, and Andre Reisinger. I'm the crypto advisor to Christie's auction house globally. So I help them with their strategy for NFTs and metaverse. And I also work with a number of startups that we've invested in, also in the NFT space, including Evo Art, Arsenal Art, Eternity, and a number of other kind of art-related platforms.
Amazing. That's quite an experience. Thank you. And we will go to Stefan.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm currently working with Block Trust, which essentially is a company that is helping large global clients move into Web3 by providing them all of the product strategy, compliance, and tech services, right? So I had the marketing and the product strategy for Block Trust. And at the same time, I'm also a partner at Circus Square, which is a consumer marketing agency, focused a lot on the entirety of the customer journey, where NFTs also start to play a very interesting role. And personally, I've been involved in crypto and blockchain since 2016, going through the ups and downs since then, which are really interesting when working in the space. Now to take things a little bit with a little bit more perspective when there's a bit of a crash happening.
Exactly, that's true. Well, I guess it's time to give our audience a bit of a background so we can be on the same page. So since February 2021 until now, NFT applications have grown exponentially. The NFT industry is currently expanding rapidly. While facing numerous challenges starting now, the NFT industry might experience a bubble. That's what the experts say, facing several adjustments, including model adjustments, economic environment, laws, regulations, etc. How can we, as early stage entrepreneurs in the industry, embrace these challenges and play a positive role in paving the way? Furthermore, the NFT's potential has not yet been fully realized. Now, its application is currently limited to a few areas like overpriced JPEGs and few art, and some amazing collaborations with artists, renowned ones. Our panelists today will discuss the origins of NFTs, the current status of NFTs, and the underlying logic of the NFT technology itself, and then analyze the future of NFT use cases, the future NFT ecosystem, and how NFT will change the producer-consumer relationship. So let's start with the first question. Before predicting the future of NFT, we need to understand the origin and the nature of the NFT first. Under what circumstances was the NFT first created? And what are the underlying logic of NFT technology and the foundation of its operation? And would you please describe some of the essential features of the NFT? This is for Jihan, please.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a lot of big questions in one. I'll try to get through all of them. NFTs were basically created as one of the first, I would say, killer applications of blockchain, and I believe it was the NFTs as digital assets have been around in many forms even before blockchain. But I guess the one that we're talking about is the ERC 721 format that was pioneered on the Ethereum blockchain. I guess that's the easiest to really think about. Now, there have been a number of different technical formats that have evolved since ERC 721, which is really the standard, which include a lot of different other additional features, but 721 is really the kind of gold standard. I think what's important for users and your listeners to understand about NFTs is beyond the technology, what it really provides is a way for people in this generation, in the digital generation, to have true sovereign ownership of their digital assets. And that has huge implications for how we as a society, we as an economy, kind of proceed. For example, before NFTs, if you wanted to hold a piece of digital property, let's just say to make it simple, it's an artwork. You would have that file on your computer, but you could press Control-C, Control-V, and you can copy and paste that digital file into infinity. And so even though you owned that file, it was not scarce. And in addition, you can't really track who created that file, like who first created that file, and who may have created or updated over time. And so what an NFT does is, by virtue of being on the blockchain, it allows us not only to find the provenance and track it back to the original issuer and identify, the contract or the wallet that was initially created. It also allows for true sovereign ownership, where the person or entity that owns and has the private key to that NFT, they really have the ability to prove ownership over time. And that's the first time that true digital ownership at scale and at distance has really been possible. And it has basically unleashed an entire generation of economic value, which is suitable for the digital generation. And it has implications not just in art, but in gaming, in fashion, in intellectual property, in kind of equities, in user data, in financial data. And so this idea of true sovereign digital ownership, both for individuals as well as for corporates, will really reshape how we transact online in the future globally, full stop.
That's amazing explanation. And Mr. Ihan, would you like to weigh in terms of like how your blockchain BSN company as a infrastructure helps with adoption in terms of like the NFTs technology?
Okay, actually, I totally agree with Jihan just said. He made an example is the digital file in your computer, right? Then it's not safe. You make multiple copies, then you move to a blockchain. That's actually why I said in the beginning, back-end system and the public system, right? In your back-end system, like your own computer, your own IT system, within your company, you can do whatever you want. So why you need to put some application or data on a public system because it's transparent, everybody knows the history, everybody can access, everybody can verify. So that's actually why it becomes so important. Okay, you can use that kind of public system to build something called a blockchain system, then, create a NFT or cryptocurrency just as application. But it can do so much. Okay, just think about the governments put half of their data in a public environment for everyone to verify and to basically to access, to update those data from 100 other IT systems to the government data. Okay, so just imagine. So why we build the BSN and also the DDC network? I will explain why we call that DDC later. Okay. So it's just like I said, we still see the NFT we talk about, because when I mentioned, NFT is the technology. So when Jihan just mentioned the NFT is actually already an application, to representing some digital assets. But, it doesn't need to be a digital asset. It could be any data, on the public system. It's actually we even we even always talk about this as a new layer on internet. Okay, a new layer to handle broadcasting, a kind of communication with this kind of public system and public applications compared to current internet layer. It handles back-end system, only handle the communication between paired, IT systems. Right now, if a process goes through 10 different IT systems, you can see it's always paired communication, between two. So the public system is broadcasting. So personally, I truly think there will be a new layer. Okay, and a huge half of the data, half of the price computing and processing will happen on this new layer to make all the business transactions, business logic, business scenarios much, much more efficient, especially it involve multiple IT systems. So that's why we even want to build the BSN. It's beyond cryptocurrency. But to be honest, from my perspective, right now to see the NFT industry, I still think it's another type of cryptocurrency, because digital asset actually mean a lot of stuff. There's assets we can speculate on. There's assets have true use, right? Right now, I think 99% of the NFTs is just for speculate. So personally, I still think most of the NFTs today is still another form of cryptocurrency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ihan. Just going back to that point, when you are talking about the other layer, the second layer, by that you mean the blockchain, which provides the data availability and the computing or shared computational power between, like a supercomputer, as we describe it.
I don't mean that blockchain alone, because the public system will be more powerful than blockchain. But right now, the blockchain is the best we have. So personally, we think, the blockchain technology is a type of the public system, but not the only type. And because remember, entire blockchain technology, how they came out, it's because they want to issue tokens, manage tokens, transfer tokens. So it's very, very limited, and it's very heavy. Specifically designed for crypto operations. So when those public chain or permission chains, they begin to serve the regular IT scenarios, it will evolve to a much lighter version, and much easier to handle. For example, for so many IT process, you don't need a consensus. Why you even need a consensus? You just, passing the data. I receive the data. That's it. Stop. Okay. So that, because remember now why the TPS on public chain is so slow, because it needs a consensus. Sometimes if you just pass in the data around, make sure everybody receives the same data. That's it. It will make the efficiency much, much higher.
Okay, Stefan, would you like to weigh in and add something to this point, to this question, based on your experience with helping other companies adopt and deal with blockchain and NFTs technology? Well,
I would have a very different perspective, right? Because I'm more of a marketing guy rather than a tech guy. So actually, I would argue that the first NFT is Beeple's first 500 days. Simply not because it's the first one ever to have been created. There's been many other ones before, but for me, it's been the first one that really put NFTs on the map for the global consumers, right? For everyone out there, not just for people who are involved in the tech. So for reference, that's an artwork that's been created by an artist called Beeple, and it was sold over 60 million US at an auction at Christie's, I believe, in probably about a year or so ago in March 2021. And yeah, for me, this is kind of like the beginning of the hype phase, where every consumer, every person has started to learn about NFTs. And NFTs have something that is quite different. We've talked about the kind of the tech features of an NFT, but I think there's a social feature to the NFTs, right? When you start dealing with DeFi is very interesting, but DeFi is very intellectual. How do you grasp what you do with DeFi? You need to be in finance, you need to understand this. And NFT, there's a more visual representation of an NFT. You can see a lot of the early NFTs have been images or JPEGs, right? So you can actually see it and you can relate to an image that you own. And if you relate to it, it becomes a lot more emotional. And once it becomes more emotional, then you get very quickly onto communities, meaning that if someone is part of the same project and you own the same CryptoPunk or the same whatever the project is, then you start to feel you have some similarities with this person. You start to feel a feeling of community with them. So I think this is one of the essential features for me, more in terms of marketing than tech, of the NFTs.
Thank you. And I guess it's worth mentioning that NFTs, as Mr. Ihan and you guys all mentioned, has many applications, not just limited to art, including DeFi nowadays. You can use, or including, for example, Uniswap or some of these DeFi protocols use NFTs to kind of control the range of which these currencies or pools can operate. So that's one of the ways, and the future is unlimited, like limitless.
Yeah, there's probably a very big misconception in the general public of what an NFT is. And there's a lot of people who believe that picture is my NFT, but it's actually not. The NFT is just essentially the tech that makes you own that picture.
Exactly.
And once you go back, and this is me from my marketing and back to the tech, so correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, essentially what it means is that this kind of ownership means that it can be applied to all kinds of different things, because ownership is not a new concept, right? It's a concept that is everywhere in the real life, in the physical life. You own your car, you own your phone, you own all of this, and they are non-fungible, right? You have an iPhone 13, I have an iPhone 13, they're not fungible. If I exchange it, then it's not exactly the same. So the concept of non-fungible is actually very common everywhere in the real world. So if you can start to understand the concept of NFTs for what it is, essentially one piece of a digital asset that can't be exchanged for another one, then you can start to apply it to all kinds of different industries and products.
Exactly.
Let me cut in just,
Please.
I always give future examples how the traditional IT system can use the NFT. I truly believe in 20 years, there will be countries pass legislation say the national lottery must be built on a public system, not a back-end system. Okay. Right now in China, nobody really trusts those public lottery systems because there was so many scandals and everything is done in the backend system. People always ask how you come up with that random number. Is that truly random? Just imagine you move everything from the government backend system into a public system, from issuing the lottery, then create each lottery as an NFT. So people use their private key to buy. Okay. Then when you open the lottery, when you get the winner, it will be run through a public smart contract, open source. Everybody know how that calculate. Then when you claim your reward, you use your private key with like a Chinese digital yuan wallet, then get the money. So from the beginning to the end, everything is on the public system. Then I think it will increase the confidence of the population and the increase of course, the sales of the lottery. So just imagine. Then if I think one day there will be, legislations passed just for that. Okay, you cannot run everything in your backend system because nobody knows what happens. So just imagine all the lottery industry move onto those public each year. It's $100 billion market already. But then it raises another question: the cost. So for that, for each NFT, I think the cost needed to below 1 cent US dollar, because that lottery is only cost $1. So you cannot use those public chain crypto related public chain to serve that kind of business scenario. You need something else. Okay, so that's actually what we are trying to do. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, I guess we'll jump to the next question. With the development of technology and the mass adoption of NFT technology, how will the rights and values change in the process of digitalizations in the future? And what kind of power and values will NFTs represent? Who would like to take this question? Mr. Stefan?
Yeah, sure. I think the mass adoption is coming, and I think it's going to change every industry in ways we probably can't even imagine yet. But I think it's going to disrupt pretty much all the industries, whether it's about loyalty, whether it's about authentication of goods, music rights, all kinds of rights for digital assets, the monetization of the assets, all done in a transparent way. I think it's going to have an impact on pretty much every industry. And I think the value into this, for me, I'm separating the value of an NFT from what it represents, because I think the value of an NFT is the utility or the experience it brings to customer. And for me, the value is going to be in there. So an example for this is the example that Yifan, you've taken just earlier about the lottery. The value of the NFT, the actual financial value of the NFT is 1 cent, because it can't go higher than this given the ticket costs $1. But the value to the person who purchases a lottery ticket is a lot more than 1 cent, and even a lot more than $1, because the value is the utility you get from this. And the utility is the insurance that your lottery ticket has a fair chance of winning like any other one. So again, I think the value is going to be determined by the utility or by the experience it brings to consumers.
Yeah, maybe I'll also kind of tag on to that. I think another value or another kind of possibility for NFTs is really just the expansion of the physical world into the digital world. NFTs represent basically a bridge between the physical and digital worlds through this notion of digital twins. Yes. So an example of this would be, say you have a t-shirt that you bought in the real world, and increasingly we're going to find that physical items will also be sold with a digital twin, an NFT, which you own the same way that you own the t-shirt, except you can't wear the NFT in the real world, but perhaps your avatar could wear it in Decentraland or in some other type of metaverse, or even in the profile picture of your Twitter handle, as we've seen Gucci and 10KTF has done. So there will be kind of more ways to have an expansion of things that happen in the physical world, in the digital world. In addition, let's say that t-shirt that you're wearing, that you bought, its provenance, its construction, the fair trade status of all of the farms or plantations that raise the cotton. You'll be able to have all this metadata, which is associated to the physical object, and will relate back to the supply chain and allow for that kind of value that's created along the entire supply chain to be expressed in this culmination of a digital object with the physical object. What that does is it more seamlessly connects the physical world to the digital world and adds value to our physical experiences by giving them a meta layer that we can observe, we can read, we can learn from, we can transact on. And I think we're already starting to see this in the art world. I think we're increasingly going to see this in the kind of business world. And I think that that will again cause a great expansion of value in terms of both retail, commerce, industry, commodities, and what have you.
And I agree with this metadata, and I think this is enriching the product history, right? It works probably a lot better for luxury goods than for a simple $10 Uniqlo t-shirt, but for luxury goods, it's interesting.
Well, not if as Yifan says, the NFT or the DDC costs 1 cent. At that point, it becomes ubiquitous, and I think that's part of the purpose of the DDC.
Yeah, true. It becomes ubiquitous, but I think the interest of wearing a Uniqlo t-shirt in a metaverse is probably less than wearing your Prada outfit that you've purchased for a lot more money. But I guess regardless of what we wear or what we don't wear in the metaverse, I think the interesting point, the point I really liked in what you said is about the metadata, right? That you can embed in the NFT. So if you have a luxury bag, then you can know where the leather comes from, who's been sewing it, who's been stitching it. You have the story of the product, but you can go even further because this is like looking back at the product, so it enriches the product. But you can look at the future, right, and involving the owner of, say, the bag into the bag itself, into the product itself. Because as an owner of the bag, you can start writing the history as you go of the product. If you wear it, you can inscribe into the NFT potentially where you've been. You can inscribe in the NFT who's owned it before you, and then it changes completely because as a person you become a little part of the product because you've had the product and you've taken it on a journey, and this journey is inscribed in the NFT for the next owner. So in real terms, that what that would mean is that if you have a handbag, a Prada handbag that's been owned by someone very famous, the same exact handbag that's not been owned by anyone famous will have a lower value, right? Because this one has a richer history, it's got a more interesting history.
Yeah, great panel. Okay, I like this. Let me summarize what you guys just said in a technical sense. You just described a database technology, right? You actually describe a database representing a bag and how the attributes in that bag is moved, within this small database and linked with owners, data. So that's what I mean the NFT go beyond everything. It's purely database technology. You can use that to anything. You can use that as a bag, as asset, as lottery, as identity. And could be no value at all. In the future, if it's only cost 1 cent, I can build an application by myself to record all my furnitures. I can say, okay, this representing my TV, what brand, how big it is, and how old it is. And if I, throw that away, I basically disable this NFT. It's no longer part of my stuff. So, it's as simple as that. So another question is, for this kind of public system, I always emphasize public. Why the NFT is a good database technology? Because it's decentralized. There's no way you can put an oracle there. Who controls the oracle? The relation database. Who controls the access? No one. That's why we need another type of database technology. So the NFT is for NFT. It could be very, very object based. Each NFT is the object. But remember, besides you can change the attributes, you can change the parameters, you can change the history. But also remember, you can link different NFT together, link those small database into a big data set. For example, in the future, the metaverse, let's say, first, the metaverse, I think, is front-end technology. Okay, let's say someone build a city on a public system. Okay, a city is one NFT. There's like 1,000 buildings. Then this NFT link to 1,000 building NFTs. Each building has 400 rooms. Then there's each building linked to another 400 rooms. And inside each room, there's 2,000 different objects. Then you link to another 2,000 different objects. Put them together, this city actually built by millions of NFT individually together. And for each NFT, for example, it's a room, how big the wall is, what color the wall is, what's the material to build this room. So it can be so big, a city, actually a big database. then different metaverse can access it. Actually, they're socially, financially, and run business in a same set database to link all the metaverse together. That's actually what I call Web3 without cryptocurrency.
I agree with this. I think our lives and everything around us, right, our environment and everything is going increasingly digital anyway. So there needs to be this link between our physical environment and a representation of this environment in a digital way. And again, this non-fungibility and the transparency of it makes it possible now. And like you said, I agree. I think the future is made of millions and billions of NFTs everywhere around us to represent every part of our life and relationships with brands and etc.
That's how important the second layer is. Remember, if you build an NFT in your backend system, it's not called an NFT. It's called your backend system data.
Yes, exactly.
I guess, gentlemen, you are all on the same page. It's just a different perspective, which is amazing to show the contrast and complement the whole story about the NFTs. I guess it's time to move on to the next ubiquitous term, which we have heard before, but not many people actually know what it means. It's the DDCs. So BSN recently launched BSN-DDC Network to promote the mass adoption of NFT technology in China while complying with Chinese regulations. Can you tell us more about BSN-DDCs in terms of functional attributes? How is the NFT ecosystem layered? What layers are included in the BSN-DDC ecosystem? Mr. Ihan?
Sure. So in the public world, you have NFTs, which sit on public blockchains. But in China, public blockchains are largely restricted by the government, and they're not compliant. So the ability for NFTs to exist is somewhat gray area, I think. And so it's unlikely that the future of public chain NFTs or NFTs that sit on public Ethereum or public Solana, they won't really have a future in China in the domestic because they're restricted. There's no way to pay for gas, to transfer them. There's no way to interact with a public blockchain in a scalable, safe, and compliant way. So what that leaves us is this kind of gap of how digital assets are going to be handled, and that's where BSN comes in. BSN is China's, you can say it's China, obviously China's national blockchain infrastructure initiative, and it's been gaining a ton of traction and ground and validation from many different parties. From the government to large SOEs. And what that is a layer zero upon which permission blockchains like permissioned Ethereum or Wuhan chain or permissioned Cosmos, Wenchang chain sit on top of. But these are still just permissioned protocols. What sits on top of those are the layer threes, the actual applications, one of which is the DDC. So in order to have a digital asset economy that is both achieves the goals of providing transparency, sovereign ownership, or a very, very close approximation of sovereign ownership, and being compliant with Chinese regulations going forward, DDCs were created by the BSN team. And so a DDC stands for a distributed digital certificate. And you'll notice that the word token is not even in the name because actually it's apart from tokens. It's a non-crypto solution to having digital assets. And I think it's a really interesting innovation and maybe one which is a bit controversial to public chain advocates who believe in full decentralization. But the fact is, in China, it's a completely different type of technical framework and regulatory environment. And I think this is a very interesting solution, not only for China, but it actually has implications for the rest of the world in terms of how we think about non-crypto blockchain applications and solutions. Think of it almost as like a blockchain which can be accessed with a credit card rather than a blockchain which requires a volatile, fluctuating cryptocurrency, which has a lot of other implications regarding security and hacking and jurisdiction kind of regulations. So the DDC is the digital asset alternative, A for China and then B for the rest of the world. And basically, DDCs can exist on each of these permission chains. So I'll give you the example of Wuhan chain. Wuhan chain is Ethereum based, and it is the official version of Ethereum, which sits on the BSN. There is no relation to the Ethereum Foundation, please note, but it is the official implementation. On this chain, ERC 721, as I mentioned before, is the format. So if you have an ERC 721 on public chain, you can recreate that with very little code change, and you can kind of reissue that. Now, what that gives you is the ability to, again, users can have sovereign ownership of their DDCs, their digital assets, whether it's art, whether it's a coupon, whether it's a loyalty point, and they can trade. They can give it to somebody else. They can gift it. You can transfer it and have full sovereign ownership. And you can also have transparency. You can see it on the blockchain. You can see it in your wallet, and you have that kind of assurance of ownership. Now, contrast that to say, without naming names, some of the largest technology platforms in China who also have a notion of digital assets, but they don't have transparency. So if I have a digital asset on a large chat platform, I own it. I own the asset, or I own the coupon, I own the piece of art. But if it suddenly disappears from my wallet, I have no recourse and I have no real way of knowing what happened to it, because those are all opaque backend systems which don't have any type of public face. Now think of this as like a publicly facing permission network, and that's what DDCs are sitting on. So we really believe that this has incredible potential, not only in China, but for the rest of the world, as an alternative system, an alternative methodology for thinking about a hybrid solution. Elements of permission, obviously compliance with Chinese regulation is important. So if there's any content which is non-compliant, then there's a recourse. So that makes it kind of acceptable. But at the same time, the other 95% is just as it exists on the public blockchain, where the users have the ability to control it, to see it, to transfer it. And that's a really interesting innovation.
That's amazing. This is I would say, like more of an outside look at the DDCs from Mr. Jihan's point of view. And I would like to hear from the creators themselves at BSN, Mr. Yifan. So,
okay. First, why it's called the DDC? Because before we even designed the network, we actually talked to some regulators. Because Chinese regulator, you actually can talk to them in normal channel. Okay, not like people think. So they actually suggest to change the NFT name. Because in China they don't want something to heavily associated with cryptocurrency. Okay, let me just add something quickly. Is why China bans cryptocurrency. Just remember, in China, 70% of the investors are individuals. Okay, they are not fully educated, so that's a little bit different, than the Western world. Okay, and that's why we changed that to DDC. But the DDC is NFT technology. But like Jihan said, in China, public chains are not legal, okay, neither. So that's why we need a big permission chain. But remember, on our DDC network, we basically working with public chains. Why? They actually, when they get in China, they actually modify that to comply with Chinese regulations. For example, take out the crypto, stuff like that. But why we work with public chains? Because even it's permission, we still can make that 100% transparent. And give people the private keys power. Okay, most of the blockchain environment in China is still a black box controlled by one company, and the end user have no access to private keys. All the private key we call hosted in the backend system. So it's a backend system. So that's why we truly want transparent, 100%. I don't say the 100, just as transparent as the public chain. And when user use a private key, it has the same function as public chain, but there's no crypto. That's why actually the cost is very low. Right now, you mint NFT on DDC network, it costs you 5 cents of RMB. It's basically 0.7 US dollar, cent. 0.0 US cent. So that's why we already see a lot of this kind of non-cryptocurrency like or this kind of collectible applications. I just give you a very recent application, actually from like 1 week ago. There's a local government. They have 70% their area is a forest. They need to build a database basically to record how many trees they have. What kind of trees, stuff like there's like millions. Now they actually decided just last week to put on the open system to create tokens for each tree and to record all the growth each year. Okay, the data, so they basically build a public database for all the trees. So for many their vendors, their suppliers, their customers to access those data. So just imagine that's millions of NFTs, and it gives transparent to those assets. That's true asset out there. Okay, so that's what I mean. In the future, most government-related data should be on the public system, not the government's backend system. This is a very, very early example. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Stefan, would you like to add something from the consumer and marketing perspective to this?
Yeah, I think there's a philosophical debate between the permission and permissionless chains. But given the situation in China being China and the regulations, I think what BSN has done is actually incredible. It's an amazing solution. That is very, very helpful, like we've seen in the example that was just presented. It's bringing really the benefits of blockchain to China at a little cost of this permission blockchain. But it is really interesting. There's this transparency benefit. But what I see also is that there is other benefits that are really interesting, like it's getting rid of speculation. Yes, the government wants to protect its citizens, but at the end of the day, if you look at speculation in projects, this is not what's making most of the projects grow, at least not in a long-term way, in a long-term and healthy way, right? And in any case, I think regulations, compliance is coming outside of China as well. Anyone would be a fool to create a project in crypto or in blockchain thinking I can get away with it, because the regulators at some point are going to come down on everyone. And once you start creating any project on blockchain, there's this transparency element in it. And when the regulators come, then they will see everything that you've been doing. So it is very important, even outside of China, to look at compliance and KYCs and regulations, etc. Whenever there's a new project that is started. And this is what actually BSN and the whole ecosystem in China is actually sorting out for all of the projects. So in a way, at the cost of a bit more control from the Chinese government, you get rid of all of the risk of the early stages of a market that is not regulated.
Yeah, let me emphasize a little bit, because people, always think, BSN is permission-based stuff like that. Let me emphasize one thing. First, we are not actually. I totally support public chains. Okay, I totally support any type of chains could be part of the public system I talk about. Okay, I'm not even against the cryptocurrency, even though I don't like them. Okay, but they are. Speculation always be part of the economy. Okay, a very important one. Okay, like stock market, future market. It's very, very important. But that's why actually, in coming August, we will launch BSN International. A project. 3 non-crypto public chains. Jihan will finance the non-crypto Ethereum. Okay. And if you build a cryptocurrency on those non-crypto public chains, it's fun. Build it. Okay, it's an application. As long as it's legal compliance in your local regulation, that's your business. I don't care. Like you're building a gambling website on AWS, it's fun. Do it as long as it's legal. What we against is put the cryptocurrency in layer 1, which means all the application to build on that need to use cryptocurrency and make everything become speculative. That's what we're against. We think it should be a public chain, just should be a decentralized AWS. Everybody contribute a piece of resources and to form a decentralized cloud environment for people. So that's actually what we believe. So personally, I believe in public chains, but not crypto on layer 1. You can build anything you want on layer 2. Then there's many applications without crypto. They can build a traditional IT system on layer 1 cheaply. Okay, not getting involved in this kind of speculative business.
Yeah, it's a very interesting distinction, and I think it makes complete sense, right? Keeping your first layer more independent and safe and compliant, and then allowing people to develop whatever they want on top of it, as long as and it's their problem to look at regulation, compliance, and everything.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well, let's switch to the NFT market in general, on the companies or the corporations that are involved. Do you see that there will be few players in terms of like we see nowadays in the internet era of the last 1 decade, where we have very few players controlling the whole industry, or we will see a couple diversified portfolio of companies that are playing and enhancing, making this whole ecosystem thrive? And what role would BSN-DDC Network, for example, play in this in particular? Mr. Yifan, do you want to take this?
Jihan, can you go? Because I think this is still an application level.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll kind of start off. I mean, I think that if you're talking about BSN, or are you talking about DDC or what, Adam?
No, actually, my question was about whether we're going to see like few companies controlling the whole ecosystem, like we see nowadays in the internet era. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that in the early days, obviously, there's a lot of diversity already, but mostly because it's such a nascent industry. I do think that as time goes on, there will be consolidation in the industry. But you also have to remember that we're not talking about a single utility technology here. It's not like AI or ML or something like this. This is a base, this is a foundation layer of the internet, of the new internet, and it spreads across everything. So it's like saying, does any one company control the internet? Well, you can say that like Google and maybe Facebook do, but to be honest, they really only control certain aspects of it, right? They're not really in the necessarily all of like the back end and the end, the last miles of a lot. There's a lot of things that are not owned by them. So to answer your question, I think that you have to consider that, first of all, there's going to be public and private. And I think that the eventual future of the blockchain landscape will be both a combination of public chain and private chain working together. I think that public chain will serve as the kind of highways and the conduits upon which connected, permissioned and connected, kind of DLTs will exist. So, for example, we'll have, permission chains in China, which can bridge out of China and use public internet to talk to the public Ethereum, kind of communities. And as long as it's compliant, they'll be able to interact in kind of some forms. But I do think that, there will be diversity, because these large, internet companies will not be able to dominate the public space the way that they have the kind of private space. And so we'll necessarily have, the decentralized version of Google, which will, maybe that's going to be Ethereum, maybe that's going to be Avalanche or some other public chain. And you're going to have these large decentralized capital pools, communities, and functions, which will exist outside of permission contexts. On the other hand, you're going to have, an expansion of kind of permissioned ecosystems, and companies like Google and whatever Tencent, others will have even more control over the technology and the applications and users that are inside of their kind of their fences. So it will be both.
I agree with you. Mr. Ifan, would you like to tell us, like, for example, give us a glimpse about your strategy or at least an outlook on the future, how BSN, for example, and the DTC network will enhance this permissioned public chains and how they're going to contribute, for example, in the next couple of years?
Yeah, first, it's really, really difficult. Okay, because the 10 people I talked to, 9 said, if you guys don't involve crypto, I'm not interested. so I say, okay, those guys are application guys. I don't want to talk to them. Okay, actually, they don't want to talk to me. But we will keep moving forward. Okay, moving forward to try to give people the concept of why we need a public environment on internet and how important it is. But let me also answer your question. It's some large corporation will control this public environment. It won't. Okay, if, for example, let's say Chinese government said, okay, for this second layer, the government will build everything, control everything. Then remember, it's no longer a public system. It becomes government's back-end system again. So public system means everybody have a voice. Everybody have the same rights to vote on the network, to make how to manage it. It could be 100 big governments and big techs together. That means it's a public system. Once it's controlled by 1 or 2 companies or governments, it's no longer a public system. It becomes a back-end system. So that's why I think right now it's still not clear. But I think moving along, when this public second layer public environment become more and more clear, the governance is most important on the second layer of internet. Internet actually is very beautiful. Everybody can set up their data center. Everybody can build their websites. Nobody owns internet. It actually made up by a piece of owned by different people, different companies. Right? That's the internet. Nobody owns. Of course, the most powerful organization is the one who issuing IP addresses. Okay, that's the most important, because if you don't have IP address, nobody knows you. So but I think in the decentralized way, it should take out even the IP address. Okay, so make that totally everybody can plug in, contribute their resources, become part of the network, and they can leave anytime they want. And once it's part of the network, there's a governance there, and anybody can build applications cheaply and be total transparent, have total control on their own data. I mean, just imagine right now, all our data in Facebook, they can do whatever they want. Sometimes you say, okay, do you agree with this? Actually, they don't need our permission. They can process whatever they want, being polite or being compliant to ask our permission. But if we move all the personal data into a public environment, then we have our private keys. Technically, they need our signature to move forward that process. Okay, technically impossible for them to do whatever they want. This is also a huge application. Okay, I also think in 20 years there will be, regulations passed, the legislation passed, actually prohibit for this big IT system to store personal data in their backend system. Okay, there will be laws. Trust me, in 20 years. So, just imagine move all the personal data in those in this public environment, public network, how big that market is.
I think this data ownership. Sorry.
Please, Stefan.
No, I think this data ownership point is actually very, very interesting, even as an answer to your question, because whilst there will be some kind of a consolidation of the market, and there will be some big companies that have become the Googles and Facebook of the new internet, I think one of the key differences is that the data ownership model is very different. Because Googles and Facebook, they make their money as using the data that they get on you, and in most cases without even your permission or with your implicit permission because you're posting on their platform. There's this big saying that says if you if the product is free, then you're the product, right? And this is the model, the business model of these big tech giants that come from the boom of the 90s. And I think, again, the big difference in Web3 is going to be the data ownership model, because now you're going to be able to control what you decide to provide as information. And if you provide it, you're going to get something in return. So the big conglomerates are going to be different. They're less going to be about using your data for advertising. And if they are, it's going to be with your consent and sharing it with you. And they're going to be more of a partnership relationship between consumers and companies.
Yeah, this will change the entire business model on internet because we will have the second layer, change everything.
Agreed.
I guess just to add the point from my own perspective, I believe that when it comes to the permissionless chains, I guess the business model so far is just about the governance model and how the power these companies have. Actually, it's more not just about the data itself, because the data is available out there. So far, we don't have many examples that kind of store the data in a very secure and private way until the ZK roll-up. So ZK implementations kind of get mature. Everything is available on the chain. So anyone can have on-chain data, dig in and use that data for any purpose. But we're not sure how is that going to look like in the next couple of years or decades. So, yeah, thank you. So just going to switch to like comparing the blockchain applications such as DeFi and enterprise blockchain. Why has the NFT no longer been confined to the blockchain industry only and attracted widespread attention? So, for example, DeFi and all of these applications have been always kind of like strictly used by the, as we call them, degens or experts or OGs in the blockchain. But for NFTs, it kind of gained notoriety outside of just the blockchain or crypto world. How did that happen? I guess Stefan can weigh in first.
Let me just quickly say that list is compiled by my marketing team. They don't understand like 5% of what our mission is. Always goes to the cryptocurrency, DeFi, and NFT stuff. Disappointed.
So would you like us to
no,
skip this question? Or
yeah,
would you like us to hear Stefan's? Okay, we'll skip this one.
No, I skipped this one. I think Jihan and Stefan definitely have many to say.
No, for me, it's what I said earlier. I think DeFi was something more intellectual to grasp, and NFTs are more emotional. You can connect more with a picture than with a number on a bank account. And then is the social utility of NFTs, the fact that it's easier to flex that you're part of the CryptoPunk community on social media than to flex the fact that you've been having a yield of this much in DeFi by bridging your assets to whichever protocol. You kind of flex that you're a nerd more than anything else. So I think this is more this emotional side of it, and the social flex and the community that have brought NFTs to the masses rather than DeFi, which is good because if people start to be comfortable with this, then they know how to use it. Although to be fair, I think that the day the word NFT disappears is going to be the best day for NFTs, because people don't need to call them NFTs, right? If you go to an art gallery, I'm saying this every now and then to people, if you go to an art gallery, you're not purchasing a canvas with acrylic paint. You're purchasing a picture you had an emotional connection with, and you want to see in your living room. But it happens to be made of acrylic paint on a canvas, but it's not what you purchase. And NFTs are the same. NFT is just essentially the underlying tech, but it's not what you're going to purchase.
Exactly the same way you can make bags out of canvas as well, not just art.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also in China right now, in translation, people actually call NFTs the art collectibles, right? And I always tell them, don't use that name. It's just digital merchandise. Okay. Yeah. What's the difference is for merchandise, there's always some kind of utility there. Right. If it's purely you just want to own something and waiting for the price to increase and sell, it's a financial product. But for merchandise, you buy for some kind of purpose. You just want to own that. Even you just like the art, you own it. It's your tenant. Okay, but you say, okay, I don't even care what that is. I just, buy, wait for the price increase and sell it. It's a financial product. Okay, so that's why for the NFT, when you create some kind of application, you need to think, what's the utility?
I think the other thing I'd add to this is, why, to rephrase the question, why did NFTs kind of take off in a way that, kind of DeFi has taken off in a different way? It's because NFTs, they are the first real consumer product for Web3. DeFi is the first, let's call it the first financial platform, but NFTs are retail oriented because they have such a wide, scope in terms of art, gaming, coupons, gifting, loyalty. This is all, kind of retail facing. And I think that it's been, other than the speculation, it's been very interesting to see how different models have really broken through with retail. And, even though a lot of the NFT space has been around speculation, it's still done its part to, help people be introduced to the idea of digital asset ownership. And I think that the next generation of NFTs will be much less speculative and much more kind of value oriented. And certainly that's going to be true with the DDC, because the types of guidelines that the technology base has in terms of not being able to, quickly transfer or flip the way that speculators do these DDCs, that will force creators and content creators to really think about what is fundamental value for digital assets. So I actually hope that, the DDC environment in China will really start to harvest some of the most kind of pure and true examples of fundamental value in the digital asset space, because we're not going to be able to the community is not going to be able to rely on the idea of, oh, well, I can buy this for $1 and flip it for $5, because that's not going to be permitted in China. So they'll have to create real useful NFTs and DDCs.
We can cut the debate here and the panel. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Hope we continue this discussion another time and we can dive deeper into the future of NFTs and DDCs and how we can make the applications more useful for everyone in the ecosystem. Thank you, Mr. Jihan. Thank you, Mr. Stefan, and Mr. Yifan. Thank you so much for organizing this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Yeah.